Hey, what up? It's Pat the Flip. Thanks for checking out the video. If you want, give me some money on Patreon or Twitch so I can keep on making cool shit. Peace.
The way that I see a lot of new players, or not, this isn't even new players. This is like this is getting into intermediate players, right? So in NorCal, we got the beginners bracket, and one of the things that I see as like a differentiator between people who are making it out of beginner bracket or about to make it out of beginner bracket and the people who are nowhere near is that the people who are about to make it out have combos, right? And it's very simple. If you are capable of doing more damages off a single hit in neutral, more damage. Then you need fewer hits in neutral to win, and so you have to play the game less, right? It's as simple as that. If the average value of hitting your opponent once is just the one hit, right? JD, right? That did 36 damage. That means I need to hit you like 15 times before I'll kill you, okay? Not so great. If I can do a combo off that JD or off, we'll do this one, right? Okay, that's 90 damage. It's a lot better, right? I have to hit you fewer times. I need to be right fewer times in order to win, right? Pretty simple. And so you see that people who are about to graduate from beginner bracket, Noah, are starting to get these combos that just let them be right a lot less in neutral, which is fantastic, right? But as you get in deeper and deeper into Guilty Gear, it becomes less about just learning more combos or longer combos and more about understanding which combo you should be doing, right? So at first, you're going to watch a bunch of good players who are better than you, do a bunch of combos, and you'll just be like, oh, cool, if I learn this, then I will be doing more damage, and if I'll be doing more damage, I have to win neutral less, and that's awesome, right? Yes, kind of, right? Like everything in Guilty Gear is like a yeah, until it's not true, right? And I'll show something real quick that should demonstrate this. This should be pretty clear to most of y'all. But let's say I go for off. You see this off FTC Oki all the time, right? Oop. Boom. You got the knockdown, does 90 damage, starts with a JH. You can get it off the FTC Oki. You're doing pretty good, right? Yeah, this is the problem with demoing live. My hands. If I can get this. Yo, that's a 160 damage. That's a lot more than 90. Maybe I should be doing that combo instead. Okay. Well, I can get that off a 2D, right? That was like a JH in a 2D. But what if I could get, you know, like, that's great if I want to go high, but what if I want to go low? Do our FTC, okay. Off a 2K, still got all those hits, but it only did 100 damage. Look at that. That's 60 less damage. What gives, right? Well, it's damage scaling, right? So, in Guilty Gear, and Guilty Gear tends to be a little bit more heavy-handed on this than other games, but in Guilty Gear, there are all kinds of formulas that change the value of a hit, so that the value of a hit is almost never consistent from combo to combo, right? And the reason is because they want to reward you for going for some things more than others, right? Essentially, if I go for the JH, they're like, yo, off the JH, like, he's risking getting anti-aired. He's in the air. He could be air thrown. Like, if Chipp gets blitzed or DP'd or whatever, he's going to fucking die. So let's get him paid for that JH, right? But 2K's fast. That button's like 5 frames. It hits low, right? And it combos into everything. Yeah, we're not going to pay, like, if you just hit a 2K, we don't think you did anything special. So we're not going to get you that paid off of this, right? That is, to recap, like, the difference, Guilty Gear characters have 420 health, right? Nice. The difference between 160 damage and 100 damage is a fucking lot, right? And so, very, very simply, right, at first, you think about combos, and you think, oh, I should do the longer combo because the longer combo does more damage, and the more damage I do, the fewer times I need to touch them, right? But because Guilty Gear has a bunch of wild-ass math in here, it's not always that simple, right? And in this case, like, if you think about it, like, so this is the combo I did that Daemendo called me, right? He was off the 2K, where I went for that full extension, right? I got 100 damage. Okay. 100 damage is good, It's okay, but it's not in a lot of cases it's not that great, right? So this is where you have to start asking yourself, hey, are there other things that I could get off that 2K besides damage, right? And the very obvious thing is, well, you can get a knockdown that lets you set up another mix, right? Because here's the thing, when I do this combo off any starter, right? Even if I do it off the JH, well, so off the JH, when I go for this, Javik, thank you for the sub. So I got 162 there, that's pretty good damage, but look what happened afterwards. Soul is able to air tech, right? So I got the hit, and I cashed out with damage. I cashed out exclusively with damage. When it comes to the post combo situation, I'm actually negative here, I think. Like, Chipp's air recovery on the Beta Blade is fucking terrible. If I do this in the corner, check this out. Look at that. Soul recovers and can air tech before I finish the Beta Blade. I'm actually minus when I hit this combo, which is why I almost never go for the Dragon Punch in the corner, by the way, the Beta Blade. So when you do a combo, you have to factor in more than just what did I get from the combo. You have to consider the situation after the combo, right? If you do 2K here into this full combo, you're taking damage, but it's not that much more damage, and you're giving up knockdown advantage, right? So if I wanted to optimize for damage against risk, right? Because this is really what we're talking about here. If I hit that 2K, I'm probably better off just taking the knockdown, right? I still get like 40 damage. That's not insignificant. But what I get afterwards is a situation where I might be able to hit that 160 damage combo because the first time I go low, and then the second time I go high, and I get paid. Well, until I drop it, right? Which is another thing you have to factor in. So at first, it's very easy to think, oh, this is how I should think of combos. Just longer combos are better because they do more damage, right? But what you actually have to be thinking about is it's not damage. Damage is one of the many things that goes into calculating value with a combo. So here's the thing. With Chipp, knockdowns are actually really important, right? And they're really important because Chipp never wants to fucking get hit. If Chipp gets hit, whatever, they get to cash in whatever risk they've built up, they get to spend whatever resources they've built up, and Chipp is just going to fucking die, right? So every time Chipp ends a combo and he cashed out with damage, he's letting the other person play the game, and that's actually pretty expensive, right? It depends on how confident you are with your neutral, but in general, if you end on a knockdown, then you get to keep on running your mix. And even if the thing that got you the knockdown was not that impressive, it unlocks your ability to go for further shit because they're knocked down. You can set up the thing that actually gets you paid, right? The value of knockdown is very high. The value of damage obviously is high because you need to do damage in order to win the game. But damage alone is not necessarily does not necessarily correspond with value. And the way you want to be thinking of damage is how many touches does it take to kill you, right? To kill the opponent character. So if we take a look at, hey Shri, thanks for the raid. Let's see. I actually haven't worked this one out myself, but if we set the, let's see, HP regen is on 0.
2 hours later.
But that looked like probably about 7 or 8 hits. Chipp should be able to kill you in 3 or 4 hits. Okay, so yeah, Sky's saying 6 to 7. Kumatama's saying 7. Okay. Chipp, if you are playing with the right situations and with the right resource spend, Chipp can kill you in much fewer than 7 hits. It usually looks more like 3 or 4. If you're being optimal about it, you get good setups. Okay. So the reason why I talk about this in terms of damage and value is one of the big reasons that 2K extension is usually not worth going for isn't just because you don't get the knockdown at the end and you're not doing that much damage. It's also because the difference between what you get off just this combo and then the subsequent mix-up versus what you get off the 2K into the air route that we just did, is the difference is big enough that you're usually not going to get fewer touches to kill off that air extension, right? This gets even more complicated when you're talking about what the situation is after the combo, because this game gives the opponent resources for being hit, right? And here's a really good example from Bear's channel, right? It's this 100 hit combo, and someone asked in the Chipp Discord, yo, are we still doing these in Rev 2? And everyone's answer is no. This is a terrible combo. It looks cool. This is actually from Rev 1, right? It's cool. It takes up a lot of time. Maybe if you have like a timer scan situation or something, you might want to go for it. It's neat to get 100 hits. But what this doesn't factor in. Oh, sorry, Sky. What it doesn't factor in is if you look at the damage here. Okay, that was. There we go. If you look at the damage here, starting from 100%, so no guts kicking. That was a full bar combo that only did like less than 50% damage, right? And what this actually doesn't show is this combo gives your opponent their entire burst back, plus probably a shit ton of tension. So, in other words, when you're thinking about the value that you get from a combo, some of it is thinking about what do you give the opponent when you're doing the combo, right? That combo only makes sense if it fucking kills them, because otherwise they're going to come back probably with full meter and full burst, and Chipp is just going to die. So when you're thinking about combo routing, when you're thinking about which combos you should be using in which situations, in general, the question you're asking yourself, people talk about optimal combos, right? And in most games, optimal is just like what is the most amount of damage that you can do off any given starter or something like that, right? But in Guilty Gear, it's really more about a couple things. So one factor in optimality is decreasing the number of touches that you need to kill. So like a really big damage combo. So one good example is like blitz loops. Oh fuck, drop that. These shits do a lot of damage. Like, even if you factor in the amount of meter that I'm spending and the fact that I'm dropping it, like in terms of, oh no, I forgot to turn health regen off. This is what I did. This is what I get for doing live demos. Blitz loops do a lot of fucking damage for the meter he's spending, especially off of a 5D. Right? So when you're looking at blitz loops as an example, you actually have a reason to go for these, and it's because it's a really efficient way to do damage. Like if you land a blitz loop in a like a tournament situation, you're probably going to be able to get away with fewer touches, right? Because the damage differential is that big, right? Yes. Also, because it's a blitz, it means that they can't burst out of it. So it's guaranteed damage, which is fantastic. And if they don't realize it and they try to burst out of it, then they might actually just get caught, and you'll take their burst and maybe even get a combo reset. It's fucking fantastic. So high damage combos can decrease the number of touches required to kill, right? But there's also optimal in terms of what's the situation afterwards that you get from that combo, right? You might be trying to maximize damage while also getting a knockdown, and if that's the case, then you might be using some of Chipp's supers more often, right? Because Chipp's supers give him knockdowns at the end. So if you finish a combo with a super, not only do you get damage, yeah, you're spending meter, but you get damage, you get the knockdown, and it's actually even better because you don't have the tension pulse penalty. That's which affects the rate at which you gain meter, right? If you Roman cancel stuff, your rate of meter gain is kneecapped for like I think 6 seconds. But if you do a super, it doesn't change it at all, right? And so if you're looking at optimal, there's a whole bunch of factors. It really does boil down to, does the damage let you be like essentially have to deal with one fewer interaction? Does the situation you're in afterwards let you get a either like a high confidence mix up or a big damage starter or something like that? And does the situation afterwards give you a less risky chance to get that next touch, right? Now, I understand this is all pretty vague and abstract, so we're gonna give it some structure, all right? And essentially, the structure that we're talking about is you can think of a combo in terms of the starter, the route, and the ender. Okay. When it comes to the starter, so we can look at some common Chipp combo starters, right? One is like 5K, one is 6P, another is Gamma Blue, right? Another is JH, right? Like that. In the corner, Leaf Grab's kind of cool because that's a combo start, right? You can get a fucking badass combo on. Nice. Wasn't even the end of the combo. And when it comes to starters, what you're asking yourself is like, yo, how practical is this, right? How do you actually get that first hit? With a 5K? 5K beats almost fucking everything, right? It's pretty practical to get that first hit compared to 6H. 6H is pretty specific. You're looking at this as like a frame trap, or you comboed into it off a counter hit 6P, or something like that, right? So you got like the practicality of the first hit. You also got the scaling, right? How does this first hit inform the rest of your combo? 5K actually scales, I want to say it's 85%, right? Or so basically the next hit will do 85% of what it normally would have if you start a combo with 5K, because this is such a good button that they don't really want to reward you for hitting it that much. Something like Leaf Grab, this combo is pretty cool, and this is a pretty good extension, right? The dash extension afterwards. But the grab, the fact that you started the combo with the grab scales the rest of your combo by 60%. So if you get Leaf Grab, you probably don't want to spend meter on like Zansei or something afterwards because it's going to be super scaled, right? And then the third thing you have to factor in for the starter is the risk, right? How fucked are you if you go for this thing and you're wrong? If you're wrong about 5K, you're probably not that wrong. It's probably okay, right? Yeah, you'll get counter hit or something. Maybe you get Dragon Punch. It's not that big a deal. If you're wrong about Leaf Grab, good players will react to that shit every time, and they will counter hit you, right? I counter hit in the Chipp mirror match. I counter hit people with this who go for Leaf Grab all the time with 2H, and I get a fat ass counter hit combo off 2H, which does like I think it's like 200 or something meterless against Chipp because Chipp is fucked up like that, right? So you have a bunch of different tools to start a combo, and you have to ask yourself, okay, is this practical? How much does this get me paid, right? How much does it scale the follow-up hits? And how risky is this? And to return to the example of FDC Oki, right? Like, off a 2D, going for JH is pretty practical, right? There's a legit left-right, right? Soul doesn't know what side he's got to block on. If I drop straight on top of him, I can kind of go past him. Am I going to get one hit or two? Like, it's pretty easy. It's pretty practical to get that JH if you set it up right. And the scaling is pretty good. The risk also, like, if I'm doing it off a 2D, the risk of going for JH is not that big a deal because there's a legit, like, 50-50 here in the left-right block, right? But this all starts to change once Soul has 25 meter, once anyone is 25 meter. Because once you have 25 meter in this game, you can blitz. And blitz doesn't give a fuck if you're on the left or the right. All it cares about is high or low, right? So this is why when you see me going for FDC Oki against somebody, I will use it with reckless abandon, and I will cash out for big damage until they get 25 meter. Because once they get 25 meter, they can blitz that JH, and if Chipp gets blitzed in midair, he's probably fucked. In that circumstance, the conditions in which we're playing the game, right, the immediate like round snapshot conditions change the risk reward of the FDC JH, right? No 25 meter means I can do this, and all I'm risking is getting like Dragon Punched or whatever. That's fine. It's okay. But the moment Blitz comes online, then I have to worry about other stuff. The risk calculus changes. The value of going for this is lower. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go for FDCJH Oki, but it means you have to do other shit, right? So, like, a lot of times you'll see people doing... let's see, what's a good example? I think... So you'll see people do that backdash JH, right? See it, sometimes you see it off like the normal FDC Oki setup. Sometimes you see people just go for that, right? the reason this is so powerful is because you time it so that if they were going to blitz, if they were going to tap blitz, which is usually what you'd want to do in the situation if you're trying to blow Chipp up, the air dash JH still gives me that JH starter, but it also lets me bait the blitz, right? And if I bait the blitz, that means I get that JH starter into the big damage. It also means they wasted 25 meter, and so they're probably not going to blitz again, right? In that case, the initial JH Oki was not that valuable, but the air dash JH Oki now became more valuable because blitz was on the table. And so I did something specifically meant to beat blitz, right? This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about value, right? There are options that don't make sense until until the opponent's options until the opponent has different options on the table. So if we look at FTC JH Oki, and again, the reason I bring this up is because all baby Chipps learn this shit, right? This is a pretty easy example, right? You talk about, oh, if blitz is on the table, then maybe you don't do that shit anymore, right? Or you do something different. But there's something else. I will often see baby Chipps go for a throw and then be like, oh, I can kind of get FTC JH over here, right? Like, I can do that. That's kind of tricky, right? The problem is that throw is not, that the knockdown advantage is not as good as 2D, right? 2D, this shit is really good. Chipp recovers really fast. Soul's knocked down for a while. I get all the time in the world to set this up, right? Look how long it takes for Soul to stand up compared to when Chipp recovers. Look at that. I can do whatever. Now look at the advantage off the throw. Soul gets up a lot quicker. One of the easiest ways to measure this is by jumping after you do whatever it is you're going to do, right? So I'm going to boom, and just hold up. I was able to finish that jump, right? Not surprising. That means that Chipp can get mediocre off of 2D. Now look at where Soul is. Soul gets up before I touch the ground. Noah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't exist. But plenty of Chipp players will do this, right? They're usually bad Chipp players. It doesn't work because it's not a good idea, right? That doesn't mean, like, it doesn't mean you can't get the hits. But the problem here is that because this Oki isn't meaty, the value changes dramatically. Chipp can get air throwed out of this shit. And so the knockdown that you get, so if we talk about the starter, right? The ender is also really important because not every knockdown is equal. Chipp's advantage off a throw is really bad. He doesn't get to set up anything tricky. So off a throw, you'll see me do shit like this because that's pretty low risk, right? If something happens, let's say Soul backdashes or Soul dragon punches or whatever, it'll probably just whiff in a lot of cases. I think Volcanic Viper will probably work here, but a lot of stuff, I can just get away with that. Either I get my counter hit, maybe I got a mix, but in all likelihood, I didn't give up anything because the risk on this mix is lower, right? Let's see, what's another good example? Where else do people do bad Oki? You can see this a little bit off of, like that. Like Alpha Plus is actually a pretty good knockdown, but that's not meaty, right? And so you have to change the Oki that you use if you're going for something off Alpha Plus, right? I usually use, let's see, I'll usually go for this instead. It's a little bit trickier. It's a little bit harder to defend against. And because I do it off S teleport, I get to do it earlier than I would normally do the FDC Oki. So it's still like a left-right with some trickiness to it, but it lets me do it a little bit faster than the FDC Oki, and so it's a little bit more real, right? Oki off command grab, I usually don't go for this mismatch, but yeah, you can do this. I think, I don't actually know if let's see. It should be more real than regular throw. Yeah. It's more real than regular throw. The main problem is distance, right? Yeah, that's pretty real, right? And so this is actually a good example. The reason that I don't usually go for mid-screen command grabs is because the mid-screen command grab gets me 83 damage and then some decent Oki, which is okay. But the way I like to play Chipp, I only want to use this like once in a tournament set. I don't want to give you the chance to adapt. The more that I use command grab, the less valuable it is, because the bigger the risk that they'll see it and beat it, right? Against like lower or like mid-level players, you'll find that there are some people who just can't react to it for whatever reason. But as they get better, they'll start to look for it, and then they'll be able to punish it relatively easy. If I try and do this against CT Warrior, he has thrown like maybe 80 to 90% of my command grabs. So I'm not going to bother going for this at mid screen, because the payoff I get is only 83 damage, right? But in the corner, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna go for this shit. I'm gonna go for this shit if I need 162 damage to win the round, right? It's more valuable to go for one leaf grab in the corner into the combo, and I didn't even do the full combo. It's more valuable to get one command grab in the corner than it is two mid screen, right? So if that's the case, why would I ever want to use this mid screen unless it's gonna finish the round or the match for me, right? So what's another good example? Let's see. Well, so we've talked a little bit about starters and a little bit about enders, right? And so just to recap, like when we're talking combo enders, 2D is really good. The main problem with 2D is that you don't get shit damage off of it, right? So if you go for 2D at the end of the combo, what you're saying is basically, I want the knockdown to run the mix, right? If I am... so another route, this happens all the time, right? If you're running in with buttons and you get deep enough in the confirm string that you can't go for 2D, right? Because you can't, once you're into the far slash or 5H, you can't combo into 2D anymore. It won't gap. And so what people often do is they'll go for Reckless, right? 87 damage, it's not great. But if you got that off of 5K, it's not the worst, right? The big problem with this string is that your turn is over once you hit the especially if you go for the second direction, right? This range is okay. Let's see, what's the frame date on Resho? Resho is -1 on hit, it looks like. Yeah. So your turn is like kinda over after you combo into Resho. That doesn't mean you can't swing again, but it does mean it's risky, right? And if you went for the low, right? That's what is it? Rokusai? Yeah. That's -7. So if you comboed into this, trying to get that last 10 damage, you gave up your fucking turn. You're back in neutral now, and you actually have to deal with a soul who's pissed because you just hit him, right? So what do you do instead? Well, it takes a little bit more work, and sometimes you're gonna fuck it up. But you can combo into JD, right? You can do instant air dash into JD, does the same amount of damage, but I get a knockdown, right? Cool. So that means I can go for FTC. Okay, nope. Because the knockdown isn't as good. The advantage off of JD is nothing close to the advantage off of 2D or even a throw. So what do I get off of this? Well, you have to find other things to get on to get the JD knockdown to pay out, right? In my case, off JD, because the knockdown's not that good, right? What do I usually get? I'll usually go for Meaty Gamma. And this is true also off the Gamma Blade combo, right? So Gamma is a good combo. But what can you get off? Well, I can go for an instant air dash into a JD route, which is okay. And it's not mind-blowing, right? This knockdown advantage is not fantastic, but it gives me enough time to set up like a Meaty Gamma Blade, which puts me in advantage, and then I can continue to press buttons, right? If I'm feeling a little bit saucier, I might go for like... into Find Me. I think if I did that a little quicker, I don't know if I'd be able to get a meaty or something afterwards, but at the very least it's a chance to apply Find Me, and the Soul player's probably going to be freaked out and probably going to block, right? If Soul doesn't have meter, I'll actually do the slow shuriken, which I don't have my training mode set to right now. Let's see. That's in character specific settings. We'll put on default. Right, so off a Gamma Blade, go for Shuriken, and that lets me get the fast Shuriken out later. But hey, if I'm in the corner, I get it. Come on. If I'm in the corner, yo, that was pretty good. I actually got a good knockdown afterwards. blades. Why? Because in the corner, you can do JD into Alpha Blade. This is another one of the things that makes combo value a dynamic thing that you have to pay attention to, is mid-screen, my options are not that good, right? Which means that a Gamma Blade at mid-screen won't pay out as much. I might want to use it a little bit less. But in the corner, I can use Gamma Blade as like a pretty safe tool. And then if it hits, and I got my Oki, I get really good damage. Plus, I get to keep on going for Oki until I fuck it up like that, right? So, mid-screen, if I use Gamma Blade, the payoff is not as good. And the risk is that I get, especially if I'm poking with it in neutral, the risk is that it gets IED'd and I get fucking destroyed, or I have to spend meter to make it safe. But Gamma Blade in the corner, like, oh, 2D, let's say I don't want to go for mix, I'm going to do this. Oh, I fucked him up because he was scared, right? All of a sudden, this is a lot more value. All of this value gets unlocked only if I have them in the corner. So mid-screen, instead of thinking, how do I get damage, or how do I get really impressive mix, what I'm usually thinking is, how can I get this motherfucker to the corner? And sometimes, later Tasty John, sometimes you'll do that by giving giving up damage. What? Right? Just comboing into Shinkiro will get him in the corner. It's not a great situation for me afterwards. I still need to work for it a little bit. But hey, he's here. If I win this, then I get all that damage, right? But sometimes, if I want to be in the corner, all I gotta do is back off, let him chase me, and then 2-2H out. And now I get it, right? So, you've got all your different combo starters. They will offer you different risk rewards based on how, basically it's like, how likely is this thing to hit, and how does hitting it affect the rest of the payout? And then you've got your enders, right? Some enders are super high value. In particular, anything that ends in a knockdown is very, very valuable, right? So you want to try and optimize for knockdowns whenever possible. But there's stuff in between, right? This is what I call the route, right? So if my, like, good example here is 5D, that's my starter. And I'm going to blitz loops, right? Well, until I drop them. Blitz loops, this is where the damage comes from, right? So if you have our starter, which was the 5D, and then we have our ender, which is, I think I usually put it with I usually say to drop it. Nice shot. Yeah, so that was actually a whack ender because I dropped it, right? I probably should have gone for TK Alpha Blade or something like that. But the point is, the stuff between the starter and the ender is what I'm calling the route, right? This is where most of your damage comes from, but it's also where you're most likely to drop shit, right? And so one good example of like different routes with different that lead to different enders is stuff like, again, I'll use this example because I'm in the corner, right? So corner blitz loops are very high value. Another thing that's really high value is going for that 2D extension, the jumping stall extension. There we go. The reason this is high value is because not only do I get a lot of meterless damage, I actually, if I get that pickup right, I get a lot of corner carry too. In fact, if I'm willing to sacrifice the knockdown and let the opponent air tech, I actually get him in the corner on the other side, which is, it's not the best, but it's not bad. So in that case, being in the corner where normally I might just get this and then some Oki, right? It's 104 damage plus good. If I don't fuck it up, I get more damage, and I still retain good corner position, so the next hit I get can do a lot, right? But the problem is that I will drop this shit. And so that's one of the things that you have to evaluate when you're looking at the route, right? You got the starter, which determines how much damage you're going to get ultimately and what the possibilities are, as well as what the risks are. You got the ender, which defines the situation after you're done with the combo, but you need to actually finish that combo and get damage, and you need to weigh the risk of dropping shit, right? And that's all in the route. So basically, when you're thinking about, like, I guess to zoom out a little bit, right? when you're thinking about whether you should be doing a given combo in a given situation, it's a lot more complicated than how much damage are you going to get, right? You have to think about whether you're going to be able to land the thing you want to land. You're going to have to think about whether you're able to actually execute the follow-up, and then you're going to have to think about how you end combos so that you get the best circumstances possible, right? It's complicated. And really one of the coolest fucking things about Guilty Gear is that people are doing this shit in real time, right? I'm not even the best at it by a long shot, but you'll see me do different combos based on certain situations, right? A really common one, so I mentioned earlier that like, that if they have 25 meter, then I won't go for FTC stuff that can lose the blitz, right? In general, unless, you know, some people show me they won't use blitz because they're not thinking about it yet. If that's the case, whatever, fine, I'll just keep on running it, right? But if I respect you, I'm not going for JH or FTC JH if you have enough meter to blitz. What I will do instead is shit like this, right? Because if you blitzed, then you just wasted your meter and you just ate, you know, a decent chunk of damage from Ryunagi. Right? But also, like, the reason you use Ryunagi is because it makes it really, really, it's essentially Chipp paying for a mix-up that's pretty hard to beat, right? If they reversal out and I decided to just block after throwing the knives, then they're probably going to get hit by the knives and take a bunch of damage, and I get to continue my turn, right? I could also go for shit like YRC Gamma Blade into Teleport, right? This is a little bit more dangerous because it does lose to Blitz, right? So I might still not follow up with a JH. But the thing about this is, while it is generally a little bit kind of more like generally applicable, is like YRC Gamma Blade is just a really good tool. But it does have a problem, and that's the problem is that YRC tanks my rate of meter gain, right? It tanks my tension pulse. So if I only have 25 meter, I might, instead of trying to press my advantage, I might actually back off, reset to neutral, because I think it's a better call than trying to spend 25 meter on a mix that might not work and leave me with 0 meter, right? I realize this is complicated. I realize there's a lot here that I haven't gotten into, but I'm gonna stop talking here now. The main thing to pay attention to is when you are studying match videos and you're asking yourself why people do certain combos, right? The answer is almost always connected to what does this player want in this situation? Do they want Oki? Do they want damage? Do they want to keep their risk low? Or are they willing to tolerate a high risk, right? For example, I might have a higher risk tolerance if I have a big life lead, right? Because and Chipp's life lead's never that big, so maybe that's a bad example. But I might be more willing to go for like a blitzable mix if I think that I have a lead to play with, and so it doesn't really matter as much, right? Always be asking yourself, is the starter I'm using the right starter? Do I have good routes after this starter? And then does the ender give me an advantage situation or not? Sometimes you'll find that there are enders that don't give you good advantage, right? Like a good example is, I finished plenty of combos with OTG Gamma Blade into buttons, right? And then sometimes I'll actually teleport after. Right? Because I think I might be able to get some mix off of there. But it's really unreliable. This doesn't mean you never use it. I use this to finish rounds all the time. This one, you've probably seen me do it, right? Actually, I usually finish off a 2 count. Right? Fuck. Time is yeah. But I will only do that if I think that's gonna kill, because otherwise the payoff off that mix isn't worth it. It starts with the 2K. I'm not gonna get shit damage off of that, right? Think about your starters, your routes, your enders. Think about, is this combo going to change the amount of hits or the amount of times I need to be right in neutral, right? The amount of successful mix-ups that I need to land. If the answer is no, then you probably want to do one that does do that. And that's really that's really how to figure out what optimal is, right? What is the closest, or what is the shortest path to victory that doesn't involve me fucking dying? That's optimal. You can look at here's a document that I kind of laid out. Like, if you think about starters, right? Well, 6H is a big ass payoff, can get you some big ass routes, but it's pretty impractical to land, right? And then down here you got something like 2D, which is pretty middle of the road. Like it's low, which is nice. It's pretty fast. It's pretty low risk, but the payoff you get isn't that great compared to some others, right? You can look at your enders and be like, oh shit, I want to get knockdowns, but sometimes you're not actually going to get, or not all knockdowns are equal, right? If you get a JD knockdown, that's going to be very different than if you get a 2D knockdown. And even a JD knockdown, the value of this depends largely on whether they were in the air or on the ground, right? If you hit a JD and it wasn't a counter hit, you just get a knockdown, but they start recovering from the knockdown instantly. Chipp still has to land and go through landing recovery, so it's not as good. Blah, 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 blah. I could go on about this forever. All this is to say that when you're looking at combos, when you're looking at how to improve on combos, it's not just how do I do more damage, it's also how am I making the most efficient choices, right? And in order to get efficient choices, you have to understand what value is important to you in this particular situation, and then do the combo that gets you as much of that value as possible. So if you got questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm going to open up the lobby so we can get some games in. I can knock off some of these runs. Thanks for listening, y'all.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。